Tara and Aaron loved to explore nature, but their Jeep Gladiator was out of commission due to some big dents in the side and major upgrades. So, they decided to pay a visit to Dan's Discount Auto Sales on Friday the 13th. There was an eerie feeling in the air that made Tara's hair stand on end when they first arrived at the dealership. But then a tall gentleman approached them from the dark. "Hi, my name is Jonathan," he said with an unsettling grin. He showed them around. Tara didn't particularly like anything on the lot. Then he said, "I have a special car in the back, you might be interested." As they walked around the back and before Jonathan could say anything, Tara said it was perfect, even though it was covered in an inch of dust. It didn't even look like it would turn on. Nevertheless, Tara was excited, and Aaron knew the vehicle would fit the build plan. Jonathan gave them the asking price for the car. After some haggling, Aaron and Tara settled on a price that would fit in their budget to build this Subaru into a light off-roader. During this process, Jonathan had mentioned some stuff about where he was from and how much he loves nature. He particularly mentioned a secret favorite camping spot he used to take his Subaru to until a big hairy animal killed his wife. He said to this day he didn't know what it was. He said, "If I said it was Bigfoot, people would laugh at me. But I will tell you this, it wasn't a bear or a mountain lion." The couple listened to him intensely about his story and gave their condolences. They eventually told him it was getting late, and they needed to go. He ended up letting the couple drive it home, but told them they must bring it back in the morning to do all the paperwork. As they drove off the lot, they felt lucky to have found exactly what we were looking for, the exact amount they were wanting to pay. So they thought. Tara and Aaron ended up taking it out that night for a long drive, enjoying the open road and the feeling of freedom that comes with a new-to-us set of wheels. The next day, they returned to the dealership to finalize the paperwork. As they drove up, the manager came running out, asking them, "Why did you steal our car?" He was just about to call the police. The couple was confused and said, "We purchased this car last night from Jonathan." The manager and salesperson looked at each other with confusion. Then the manager said, "Jonathan has been dead for a year. He died of a heart attack in that Subaru." They began to tell us how Jonathan was their best salesman and worked for the company for several decades. They were not going to ever sell it, and that's why it was in the back part of the building. The manager didn't believe them at first, until they told him that Jonathan told them about his secret camping spot and what happened to his wife, and that he believes a creature, possible Bigfoot, killed his wife. The manager was shocked that they knew that information. There is no way random people would know that, thought the manager. The manager decided not to call the police and thanked them for bringing the vehicle back. But just as Tara and Aaron was about to get into a taxi to go home, the manager came running back out with the keys and yelled, "Wait, wait." He said to them that it seems like Jonathan really wanted you to have this car, so here are the keys. We will sell it to you for the price he quoted you. Tara nervously took the keys from the manager's hand, feeling like they were cold, almost as if they had just been lying on a slab in a morgue. As they turned to leave, the sky darkened and the air grew suddenly colder. They could hear the sound of rustling leaves and the distant cawing of crows. They looked back at the dealership, and for a moment it seemed as if the building was alive, its windows glowing with an eerie green light. They decided to take it to that special campsite Jonathan mentioned, but then days turned into weeks, and weeks became months, and nobody had heard from or seen the young couple ever again. The police had conducted an extensive search, but found no evidence of their whereabouts or any signs of foul play. It was as if they had disappeared from the face of the earth. But the car they had purchased seemed to reappear back at the dealership. After the police cleared the car to be sold, the Dan's Discount Auto Sales attempted to sell the car, but found no takers due to the rumors that had started to spread. Many people believed the car was cursed and haunted by the vengeful spirit of Jonathan, the deceased salesman. Some claimed that the car had claimed the lives of other innocent travelers who had dared to get behind the wheel. Eventually, the manager decided to keep it as a novelty item, a warning for those who dared to venture off the beaten path. It was Friday the 13th, a year later from when Tara and Aaron had disappeared. The story happened to be on the news that night. Sparking curiosity, a group of teenagers looking for some thrills decided to break into the dealership to take a closer look at the legendary cursed car. The lights flickered as they approached the vehicle, and they could hear straying whispering sounds coming from within. One bravey soul decided to get in and take a closer look. The others waited outside, nervous and apprehensive. As soon as the door closed, the car started to shake and vibrate, the engine roaring to life on its own. Suddenly, the car shot off like a bullet, with the terrified teen still inside. The car drove itself through the winding roads and up to the hills, with the boy screaming for help. The others tried to get on foot to follow, but they lost sight of the car as it disappeared into the dense fog. Days later, the car returned to the dealership, with the boy still inside, his face twisted in terror, and his eyes hollow and vacant. The car parked itself in the same spot where it had been before, and the lights flickered off once more. To this day, the cursed car remains unsold, and the dealership has been abandoned. Nobody dares to venture into those parts anymore for fear of attracting Jonathan's wrath. And if you ever find yourself in the area on a dark, stormy night, be wary of the ghostly figure of the young couple, who are said to still wander the hills, searching for their way back home. The story of the cursed car had become an urban legend in the small town, and people whispered about it in hushed tones. Even those who didn't believe in ghosts were wary of the cursed car, for strange things had been known to happen in its presence. One particularly brave individual, a journalist from the city, decided to investigate the story of the cursed car. He arrived in town armed with his camera and a healthy dose of skepticism, convinced that he would finally put an end to the rumors once and for all. As he made his way to the abandoned dealership, the journalist noticed that the air grew colder and the sky turned dark and ominous. A sense of foreboding washed over him as he stepped inside the building. The dealership was filled with dust, cobwebs, and abandoned cars, but the journalist's attention was drawn to the cursed car, which sat in the center of the showroom. He approached it cautiously, feeling as though he was being watched. As he started taking pictures of the car, he heard strange whispers around him and the lights flickered. Suddenly, he noticed that the car's reflection in the mirror was moving, as if it had a life of its own. The journalist tried to run, but the door wouldn't budge. He could feel a presence behind him, and when he turned around, he saw Jonathan's ghostly figure looming over him, his eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The journalist tried to fight back, but his camera was knocked out of his hands, and he felt icy fingers wrap around his neck. He gasped for air, struggling to break free from Jonathan's grasp. Just as he thought he was about to pass out, the journalist heard a distant voice calling his name. He saw a hand reach out from the darkness and grab his wrist, pulling him away from Jonathan's ghostly grasp. The journalist stumbled back, gasping for air, and saw that it was the young couple who had mysteriously vanished years ago. They were alive, but their eyes were empty and lifeless, as if they had been touched by the cursed car's evil power. The couple grabbed the journalist's arm and pulled him toward the door, which suddenly swung open. They ran out into the night, the sound of Jonathan's maniacal laughter echoing behind them. The next day, the journalist's camera was found smashed on the showroom floor, but his footage remained intact. When it was replayed, it showed the cursed car's reflection moving on its own, and the journalist being choked by Jonathan's ghostly hands. The footage was never released, and the small town remained silent about the cursed car, for fear of attracting its intense, often vicious power. The journalist's story would live on as a cautionary tale to all those who dared to venture into the unknown. After years of sitting idle, the Dan's Discount Auto building was destroyed. The cursed car had found its way to a junkyard on the outskirts of town. Some say late at night they would hear a couple yelling "Jonathan" as they were seen chasing another person into the darkness. Nevertheless, one day in the hot, dry desert sun, with no prospect of ever being driven again, a young woman found the little Subaru. After years of being abandoned in a garage, a dented Subaru lay covered in dust and cobwebs. Everyone in town knew the car had been cursed after a road accident, but it didn't stop a young girl named Lindsay from deciding to fix it up. Lindsay had always been a bit of an adventurer, and she saw this broken-down Subaru as a challenge. She wanted to take it on trails to the nearby desert and trusted that the car would hold up off-road. Despite protests from her parents, Lindsay spent countless hours under the car's hood, slowly piecing it back together. The task was strenuous, but the young girl remained determined to get the Subaru up and running again. Eventually, the day arrived when the car was fully restored, and Lindsay couldn't wait to take it out to explore the desert. The drive was thrilling, and Lindsay enjoyed every bump, hill, and corner that the car navigated with ease. But as the sun began to set on the horizon, Lindsay realized she had lost her way. The directions she had followed were no longer recognizable in the fading light. Lindsay tried to start the car, but it wouldn't start. She was stranded in the desert, and she had no way of contacting anyone for help. Exhausted, she decided to wait until morning to look for help. However, morning never came, and neither did Lindsay. The Subaru had disappeared. Her parents searched for her for weeks, but they never found her or the cursed car. Some speculated that the car had claimed another victim, others that the desert had swallowed both girl and car whole. The remains of the car were eventually discovered by locals, twisted and crumpled beyond recognition. It was clear that something fatal had happened to Lindsay and the Subaru. To this day, nobody knows what really happened, and many believe that the cursed car remains in the desert, waiting for its next victim to claim.